Well, good afternoon. Our government continues to put the health and safety of every Ontarian first. That means physical health and mental health. We know this virus has had a profound impact as people have had to isolate and put off visits with family and friends. For our kids and young people, it's been especially difficult. While classes have resumed and some after-school activities have started, not everything is back to normal. You're home, more with your parents and siblings, you're seeing less of your friends and relatives, and that can be stressful. We have to make sure that our kids have the supports they need during this difficult time, because we're all in this together. That's why we're moving forward today with an investment of over $24 million for specialized mental health services for children and youth. This targeted funding will support community-based services, so our kids are not alone. We're investing $11 million in 80 children and youth mental health service providers across the province. This funding will enable them to hire more staff, increase counseling and therapy, and allow more intensive and crisis services. We're also supporting services like youth wellness hubs with 10 locations across the province. These are one-stop shops for kids ages 12 to 25 to find mental health and addiction counseling, peer support groups, as well as education and employment supports. We're also supporting programs to intervene earlier on eating disorders. This is a huge issue for some of our kids. It affects about 25% of young people, mostly girls. And we need to let them know that we're there for them. I have 4 daughters, and when they were growing up, Carla and I raised them to stand up for themselves. They could do anything they put their mind to. We have to let every child know that. All of these investments are part of our $176 million commitment this year to build a better, more connected mental health care system in Ontario. We've also provided almost $27 million to expand virtual mental health services during the pandemic, including funding for Kids Help Phone, as well as Bounce Back, a service for teenagers over the age of 15. We've also provided over $19 million to expand mental health services for students in our colleges and universities. That includes $5 million for Good to Talk, so students have access to Helpline 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all year round. And I want to take a moment to thank all the mental health workers out there for supporting our kids, our frontline health workers, and so many Ontarians over the last 8 months. You're absolute champions. Thank you for everything you do. We all have a responsibility to look after each other, and together we will get through this. Thank you, and God bless the people of Ontario. Now I'll hand it over to Minister Tibollo.
Thank you, Premier. Good afternoon. 1 in 3 Canadians are expected to experience a mental health and addiction issue within their lifetime. And we know that 70% of these issues begin early in a person's life, either in childhood or as a young adult. Earlier this month, we announced an additional $176 million this year to address urgent gaps in care and wait times for mental health and addiction services, especially during the COVID-19 outbreak. As part of this funding, we'll be investing $11 million to enhance capacity and access to critical frontline mental health services for Ontario's children and youth, and to ensure we have the right services in place in the community. We will also be investing $5.8 million for youth wellness teams to the 10 Youth Wellness Hub Ontario service sites, and in addition, $3.7 million for a brand new eating disorder program for children and youth up to the age of 25. And we will also be investing $2 million for the implementation of the Ontario Structured Psychotherapy Program for families, youth, and children aimed at treating anxiety and depression. All of these investments are in support of the Roadmap to Wellness, our plan for creating a connected mental health and addiction service system offering Ontarians the high-quality care they expect and deserve. By expanding access to services for our children and youth, We're taking a significant step towards building a mental health and addiction system for the future, where people and families are fully supported in their journey towards mental wellness. Tous ces investissements appuient Road to Wellness. Notre plan de création d'un système de services de santé mentale et de lutte contre la dépendance connecté offrant aux Ontariennes et aux Ontariens les soins de haute qualité auxquels ils s'entendent et qu'ils méritent. En élargissant l'accès aux services pour nos enfants et nos jeunes, nous faisons un pas important vers la construction d'un système de santé mentale et de lutte contre la dépendance pour l'avenir, où les personnes et les familles sont pleinement soutenues dans leur chemin vers le mieux-être mental. Merci. Thank you. I now invite Minister Elliott to say a few words.
Thank you, Minister Tibollo. Our government made a commitment to the people of Ontario to build a comprehensive and connected mental health and addiction system that works for everyone. That includes our children and youth. The COVID-19 pandemic has shown that we need to do more to ensure we can safely address the mental health and addiction needs of the people of Ontario, particularly young Ontarians. The numbers show they have struggled with isolation and uncertainty over their studies, their lives, and their futures. We are seeing an increase in the number of calls to Kids Help Phone and Connects Ontario since the outbreak began. That's why we're investing $24.3 million this year to create and expand existing mental health and addiction services targeted specifically for our children and youth. These investments are going to provide more frontline care to address urgent gaps, increase access to services, and ensure the right resources are there to meet growing needs. Our government continues to make mental health and addictions a priority by making critical investments, like the one we're announcing today, to ensure children, youth, and their families have access to supports and services. COVID-19 has been hard on all of us, but these supports are needed more than ever for young Ontarians. This investment is part of our plan to build a comprehensive and connected mental health and addiction system. As the COVID-19 situation evolves, we will continue to work across sectors to find innovative solutions and models to ensure supports are there for those in need. We are committed to creating a province where all Ontarians, young and old, are fully supported along their journey towards mental wellness. We are making mental health a priority because mental health is health. Thank you, and I'll now turn it over to Minister Dunlop.
Good afternoon. I'm pleased to be here to announce new investments in mental health programs for children and youth across our province. Mental health struggles truly come in many forms and does not discriminate on age, gender, socioeconomic status, or race. Mental health is health. When individuals have the right supports they need, they are better equipped to thrive and participate fully in their communities. This is particularly true when it comes to addressing the complex mental health needs of children, youth, and their families. It is crucial that mental health and well-being programs and services are designed and delivered with a culturally relevant, trauma-informed lens. I would also quickly like to thank Minister Tibollo for his work on this file and continued advocacy for mental health. I also want to extend my thanks to the Premier and Minister of Health for also being strong supporters of mental health in our province, especially for kids. The good news today is that our government is investing in much-needed mental health supports for children, youth, and families. Resources like the Ontario Structured Psychotherapy Program will help more children and youth build the skills they need to manage mental health challenges that they may face. Working with Minister Elliott and Minister Tibollo, we're helping to fill critical gaps in this space that have been identified by our partners and within Ontario's communities. We are increasing investments in targeted, prevention-oriented, community-based mental health and well-being services to improve outcomes for children and youth. I'm proud that these life-saving investments will protect our children and youth and provide mental health supports when and where they need them. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to the phone line for questions. First question.
Your first question comes from Mike Crawley with CBC News. Please go ahead.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, question for the Premier. Premier, your government's got a bill in the works that, or it's it has been tabled, a bill that has been tabled about reducing red tape, and it's supposed to be about helping the economy recover from COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
How come you're using this bill to turn your friend Charles McVitie's Canada Christian College into a university and give it the power to grant Bachelor of Arts and Science degrees?
Well, again, Mike, I have a lot of friends within churches and colleges and so on and so forth, but this was a college under the Liberals as well. And he went through the process like every other college, and the process is independent. So good luck to him.
Ballot.
Okay, a question for Minister Elliott. Minister Elliott, my colleagues in Ottawa have spoken with a pregnant woman whose OHIP card expired a month ago. And when she went to a clinic for her ultrasound, they refused to give it to her because her card had expired. And we're hearing from clinics that the province is refusing to reimburse some medical procedures with people who have expired OHIP cards. Can you explain why this is happening and why the province isn't, blanket reimbursing providers, healthcare providers, for cases in which OHIP cards are expired because you told people that they don't need to get their the cards renewed during the pandemic?
Well, we had made the announcement before the pandemic that we were going to phase out the old red and white cards, and we're asking for people to get the new cards with the photo ID and an expiry date. But under these circumstances, we are allowing, because many people are not able to get these renewed, that these are situations where we shouldn't be penalizing people for under those circumstances. So it's something that I can certainly take a look at, because this is not really the kind of situation we expected to be facing. And so I think we have to allow a certain amount of leniency for people in these situations.
Next question.
Your next question comes from Randy Ratz with CHCH-TV. Please go ahead.
Hi, Randy.
Hi, Premier. Hi, I'm wondering if we can get back to today's announcement for a sec. Have children and youth suffered more mental problems during the pandemic than the rest of society? And if somebody could give me an idea of what specific problems they're suffering and why.
So before I hand it to Minister Tibollo and Minister Dunlop, they should both speak on this. It's tough on kids, and I'm just speaking, Randy, from a lot of the kids I run into or I talk to, or family, friends that have kids. First of all, they're so happy to be back in school. They're so happy to be with their friends, and they've never experienced this in their entire lives, being isolated within the home, not being able to go out and see their friends or play with them. So I think it definitely affects them, but I'll hand it over to Minister Tibollo.
Thank you. In fact, it does impact on children. When you think of the fact that part of their development, the cognitive development that takes place during the early years of life, takes place in the school environment, eliminating that, especially in the early days before we got the kids going back to school, it put them into isolation. And that isolation leads to depression. It leads to issues, anxiety as well. So getting them back to a regular routine, whether it be homeschool on the internet, or if they're back in school, getting them back into a regular routine provides them that consistency and the ability to deal with a lot of the issues. And of course, their development continues in the best way possible when they're back in school. So it did impact the children, and it's something that we've had our eye on with respect to the services that we've been providing, and at the Mental Health Roundtable to determine and to make sure that we have the supports in place to help them, whether it's the Kids Helpline or the other virtual supports that we have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And as a mother of 3 children, I can see the effects of COVID and the isolation this time too. And it's so important that we're connecting these services. And I appreciate the work that Minister Tibollo has done in collaborating across ministries. It's so important. And being a mother, as I said, of daughters, the investments in eating disorders, it's so important, because as a parent, you worry about that with your young girls. So these investments today are incredible for children across the province. Thank you.
Follow-up?
Yeah, another subject. VIA is now requiring a medical certificate and a photo ID for passengers that want to ride without a mask. Is this something that GO Transit and in fact all transit systems should be adopting?
Well, everyone should be going and wearing a mask when they get on public transit. It's just being respectful to other people on the train and protecting them and protecting yourself. So I highly recommend to make sure you bring a mask if you're going to be traveling on any of the transit systems, be it TTC or the GO train or any other trains.
Next question.
Your next question comes from Travis Danraj with Global News. Please go ahead.
Hi, Travis.
Hey there, Premier. I'm just wondering if I can get your take on this demonstration outside of Queen's Park this morning. Maxime Bernier was there, Wendy Hillier was there, no social distancing, no mask. I'm sure you've seen the pictures already. Your thoughts?
Well, we live in a democracy. I've told people you want to protest, come down to Queen's Park. They're welcome to protest. What I do ask is not to be violent. And I heard there was a little bit of violence out there today, and that's unacceptable. We live, again, in a democracy. It's about freedom of speech. If they want to go out there, do cartwheels, jump up and down, hold signs up, shout and scream, that's fine. But violence is where you cross the line, and we won't tolerate that for a second. If you're violent with the security folks here, our Toronto Police or OPP, it's not going to end well for you.
Follow-up?
Yeah, and just on testing, yesterday I know that you said that the backlog was cleared, but
Yep.
the numbers show it's grown from roughly 24,000 on October 19th to over 29,000 yesterday. So
Yep.
where are we at with the backlog, and what is being done to change that situation so we don't see this continue?
So before I hand it to the Minister of Health, what they say is standard. They're one day. It's usually 24, 25, 29. So that's considered 1 day, and they're caught up, and you're going to get your results really quick now within 24, 48 hours. And they did a good job in catching up. And if people are showing symptoms, we've geared up for 50,000 tests. We don't see 50,000 coming in. I think it was 32 yesterday. But if you show symptoms, I encourage you to go get tested. I'll pass it over to the Minister of Health. Thank you.
Well, in actual fact, this isn't a backlog. This is what happens in the normal course of events, that whatever 25 to 30,000 tests is what we normally see from day to day, and they can be processed within the next day. We have caught up on any backlogs that we did have, and so we do anticipate that people should receive the results within 24 to 48 hours. That's really important for so many people in terms of going back to work, for someone who's being held at home because of school, not allowing them to come back without a clean certificate. This is important for all Ontarians. So we have moved past any backlogs, and we are up to date with our testing right now.
Next question.
Your next question comes from Sean Jeffords with the Canadian Press. Please go ahead.
Hi, Sean.
Good afternoon, Premier. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, great. I wanted to ask you about the liability protection bill that was introduced in the House yesterday. I'm wondering what you would say to families who lost loved ones in long-term care during the pandemic, who look at this new legislation and the liability protection it grants specifically to long-term care operators, and think that you've created an obstacle for them to hold these companies accountable. What would you say to those families on that?
Well, they can continue to sue them, and this doesn't cover them full liability whatsoever. As I said the same thing, by the way, Sean, when they brought this to me, I said, hey, these families have the right to go after long-term care homes that were reckless and careless, and they have the right to do that. This does not protect them 100% by any means, but what they were saying, if we did it for one group, protect the restaurants or the convenience stores, you had to include everyone in the province. But I specifically asked that question. Yes, they can still be sued.
Follow-up?
And Premier, in that same legislation, there is also a clause that will prevent municipalities from using ranked ballots in the next election. Premier, your party elected you leader on a ranked ballot, so there really isn't anything new about this system. London used it in the last municipal election, and it seems to have went off all right. what does your government not support when it comes to the use of ranked ballots?
Well, first of all, we've been voting this way since 1867. We don't need any more complications on ranked ballots, and we're just going to do the same way as we've been doing since 1867, first past the post. They don't have to be confused. It's very simple, and that's what we're moving forward on.
Next question.
Your next question comes from Colin DeMello with CTV News. Please go ahead.
Hi, Colin.
Hi, good afternoon, Premier. I just wanted to follow up on Sean Jeffords' question
Sure.
about the liability legislation.
Yep.
You say that long-term care homes can be sued, and that is
That's
true, but
Yep.
lawyers are actually saying that the threshold to prove is much higher. Instead of proving negligence, they have to prove gross negligence. And all those long-term care homes have to say is that they were acting in good faith. Premier, how can you say that long-term care homes can actually be sued if it seems like these lawsuits could be thrown out because you guys have increase the threshold of the burden of proof here?
Again, Colin, this was very important to me because if someone was negligent, and you can say gross negligence, then they should be sued. This does not protect the long-term care homes 100% by any means. We were put in the corner in the fact that when convenience stores or other small shops, a grocery store, any of them, if you went in there and you said, I got COVID, well, you could put thousands of businesses, out of business. And they said, you have to do all or none. And I specifically asked them, does this protect long-term care from people that have lost a loved one? Can they continue to sue? And they said, yes. If they've shown, as you said, gross negligence, then, and some did. I was up here going after these guys. So they should continue on with the lawsuit if that's how they feel.
Follow-up.
Thank you, Premier. As cynics would look at this and say, maybe Premier Doug Ford is trying to protect people in the long-term care sector who either have ties to the PC party or led the Progressive Conservatives in the past. Could you answer that question, Premier? Who are you protecting? Are you protecting people here, or are you protecting, people like Mike Harris, former leader of your party?
No, not at all. I've been out here just hammering the people that have been negligent in long-term care. I've been on these guys like an 800-pound gorilla. I'm protecting the people. I'm protecting the people that lost loved ones. I'm protecting the small convenience store when someone goes in there and accuses them of catching COVID in a convenience store, or all the restaurants, the 7,400 restaurants here and thousands across the province. Those are the people I'm protecting because they wouldn't be able to do business. And insurance rates are going up like I've never seen. And that's a warning shot for the insurance companies. You guys got to rein it in, because I'm getting too many stories of how you guys are gouging these businesses and charging them astronomical amounts of money. And that also led to our decision, making sure that we protect the small business owners.
Next question.
Your next question comes from Rob Ferguson with the Toronto Star. Please go ahead.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Premier. Just back to the COVID liability legislation. You have really ticked off a lot of families out there who lost loved ones in long-term care and say that what happened to their dad or their mom or their grandparents followed years of, in some places, followed years of bad inspection reports and whatnot. And they point to the fact that you said numerous times that people, that nursing homes would be held accountability. So by ruling out what could be thousands of lawsuits that don't meet the gross negligence threshold, what are you saying to these families who are so angry at you?
Well, first of all, I would speak to their lawyer, and if they're suing him and there has been gross negligence or negligence, continue suing them. They will be held accountable. And maybe what someone has to do, rather than just read the headlines per se, what they need to do is talk to their legal advisor and get this clear, because by no means are we going to protect the negligence of long-term care providers. And I can't be any more clear than that. They will be held accountable. Very simple. And I encourage you, if you feel they've been negligent, sue them. Simple as that.
Follow-up.
But what would you say to a family, though, that, for example, was told that their loved one was fine, and then all of a sudden, a week later, gets a call that dad is dead? What do you say to someone like that? Because that may not be gross negligence, those people are in a spot.
Yeah.
And it looks like this bill is denying them a chance for justice.
Well, I'll repeat it again. This bill does not deny him from suing long-term care. And people have to read the bill, get their lawyers to read the bill. First of all, what I want to say, my heart breaks for anyone. A lot of people passed away that were in homes that weren't negligent. It's a terrible, terrible disease, virus, I should say, COVID, and it's affected so many people. Of course, my heart breaks like everyone else's heart breaks when you lose a loved one. We've made massive changes in long-term care, well overdue, 20, 30 years overdue. And we're making the appropriate changes to make sure that we have a safe environment for the most vulnerable in this province. And we'll be on this like you've never seen before.
Last question.
Your final question comes from Haley Cooper with News Talk 1010. Please go ahead.
Hi, Haley.
Thank you. Hi, Premier. My two questions actually are for the Minister of Health.
Yep.
We've looked at some numbers, especially the number of new cases in the hot zones in the province, and what they show is that over the past week, the average daily new cases is now actually higher than what it was in the week leading up to those regions being pushed into a modified stage 2. So only Ottawa has shown a decrease. Does this mean that restrictions aren't actually working?
No, it doesn't mean that at all. It takes a period of time after the measures are put into place before you're going to see those results, because what you're seeing daily now is a result of infections that may have happened 5 days to a week ago. What we expect to see in the next while, the next week or two, will be a reduction in the number of cases. And we are seeing some evidence that that's happening in Ottawa, and we have other evidence that suggests that it is going to go down. But you can't expect an instantaneous reaction. That doesn't surprise us at all, but we do anticipate that the numbers will start to go down as a result of the measures that we've taken in those locations.
Follow-up.
And we wanted to ask you about a COVID testing device that's been approved by Health Canada. It's called ViroCool Anosmic Smell Tester. So it's a device so that users can test and screen themselves basically anywhere, similar to how someone would probably test their blood sugar. This would be especially beneficial in schools and long-term care homes and businesses that need to check if someone is symptomatic or asymptomatic. Have you heard of this device, and is Ontario going to be working on getting these devices? Or if a business, let's say, orders them, will the province designate this device as an official COVID test?
Well, I do know that there are a number of new tests that are being contemplated that are being tested by Health Canada. And there are, I know Dr. Williams and the public health measures team and people within the ministry are looking at all of these new tests, because we're also looking at ways where particularly children can be tested without using the nasopharyngeal swabs, which are uncomfortable for everyone, but particularly difficult to administer to children. So we are looking for anything that's less invasive, and if it is effective, of course, we're going to look at bringing new testing methods onto the market and in different locations as soon as we can.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you, everyone.